Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I'm John Lincove.
I'm Michael Crossan.
I'm Emily Thomas.
So on today's episode, we're talking about a car, an SUV that first blush, people may be like, okay, but there is some interesting stuff. It's the Toyota Highlander, freshened for 2023. The big news really is that it got a new engine. The hybrid stays the same, but the regular version, they dropped the V6, the 3.5 liter V6 that's been in like Toyota and Lexus products for so long, like at least as long as I've been here at CR, and that's like the dawn of time. It's a turbocharged four-cylinder, 2.4 liter turbocharged four-cylinder. It comes with an 8-speed automatic transmission. According to Toyota, some improvements in emissions. It weighs a little less than the old V6 engine. And also it's kind of in the world of efficiency now. The V6 may be reaching its end of its life. They can't squeeze enough efficiency out of it. Also with this little freshening of the interior with the new infotainment system, base system's an 8-inch screen. We got the optional 12.3-inch one. And Emily, you mentioned something interesting in our pre-meeting about people who already own Highlanders should really try this out, right?
Yeah, I think if you're accustomed to the prior infotainment system that had a lot more hard buttons, it would be important for you to get in and try out the new system because there's less hard buttons to use and there's more on the screen. Yeah. So that could be a bit of a game changer for people and making sure that you can easily navigate, you can find what you need. We've mentioned this before that when you test drive, it's not just about the driving experience, it's about the controls, it's about how you're able to access things that you need to change during the trip, you know?
The whole living experience with the vehicle. Yep. So ours cost $43,420 MSRP. $1,573 in options, including door edge guards. $1,335 to deliver it with a full tank of gas. $44,983 out the door is what we paid for our 2023 XLE all-wheel drive Highlander. Mike, you were looking through this and said that there's like casts of thousands of Highlanders available, right?
Yeah, we got that XLE, and just in preparation for this, I was on the website, and there's 12 different trims that you can get between hybrid and bronze and platinum and all kinds of things. It seems excessive to me, but there's 12. I had to use fingers to get to that number, but there's 12.
No toes.
No toes.
Okay.
I was able to just do the last two in my head. But,
okay, good. Good.
You know, between all-wheel drive, hybrid, it's a lot to juggle as a customer. You know, which one is right for me. That could also be a consideration of what's available when I want to go buy one. Sure. You know, you might not have a dealer that has many, certainly not 12, sitting there on the lot ready to inspect and see which one fits you. So you probably have to do a little bit of homework on your own.
Yeah. Well, we buy the XLE. We buy the mainstream trim here at Consumer Reports. For people who don't know, we buy all the vehicles we test. And then we put them through our test process and we sell them when we're done with them. So we buy the mainstream version. We talk to the auto manufacturers, find out what they project for their sales. And so while they make a bronze, a platinum, an obtanium, whatever, they sell like 2% of those. In talking with them, they're like, well, there's 50% LEs and 40% XLEs, and then they make 1% of the other ones. So you have your heart set on a platinum, you really need to talk to the dealer and see if they have one.
Yeah, because they're not making, the OEMs have kind of figured out with the pandemic that they don't really need to make a huge volume and they're still getting their money's worth. So I think if you do have your heart set on one of those less common trims, that it would be important to call around at the various dealerships near you, see what they actually have in order or have on the lot, so you don't set yourself up for disappointment when you get there and you're like, oh, this like 1% or 0.5%,
sure,
trim line that I was really looking forward to is not going to be available ever.
Or vice versa. You go there and they only have a platinum and they want to push you into that platinum. Like,
right.
Well, look at this. You don't want to give it up.
That's a price point that you weren't prepared for,
Absolutely.
So that's important, like you guys are saying, to do your homework, figure out where you're comfortable, where you're willing to budge, etc.
So we each drove this multiple times. Mike, we'll go with you first because you kind of had a change of heart on it, and
I did.
Alluded to like, you may not be excited about it, but wait.
Yeah, I didn't purchase our test Highlander, but I did pick it up at the dealership, and I drove it home in driving absolute downpour rain. So that's a difficult sort of first drive. You don't get to experience much aside from maybe the defroster and the windshield wipers. So I didn't love it at first, but then when I actually sort of had my overnight in it, it was a pretty decent vehicle. It had plenty of power, did whatever I asked it to do, kept up with traffic. It was reasonably comfortable, reasonably quiet most of the time. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get to the engine. And it did pretty much anything I needed it to do. It's got the 7 seats, which would be great if you have a bunch of people to lug around. I think that's a winning point in this one versus some other SUVs that are maybe a 5 or 6 seat or something along those lines. And I think that puts the Highlander in a category that really makes it desirable, and there's certain customers that need that and want that, and have probably maybe had Highlanders in the past as well.
Yeah, there's a reason why it's like a minivan of SUVs.
Absolutely.
So.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Emily, you had similar?
Yeah, so it probably didn't help that I talked to Mike after he had his very drab experience driving home in the rain.
Well, it's a gray vehicle, too. With a gray
right,
interior,
so, he didn't have a lot of sunshine that day, inside or outside the car. But I will say that, it felt pretty unremarkable for me when I took it out to drive. And, but I think in the pre-production meeting, I said that it was kind of boring, but it's boring in all the best ways. Like all the ways that you want a car to be boring. It's dependable. It does what it's supposed to do. Like you can get in, you can get the car going easily. You don't need to be like a rocket scientist to figure out how to
or have
perform.
a PhD or anything, right?
Right, you don't. Right. To like figure all the primary functions of the vehicle. It's all easy to do. Even though they changed the infotainment system, it was still relatively easy enough for me to manage and, get my CarPlay set up and do things like that. I know you have a little bit of a different experience there, which is fair. But my point is, some cars I get into now and I'm like, okay, this is going to take me a minute to figure out. This one I was able to get in and get going, and I love that. I like not having to read the owner's manual before I drive.
Sure.
Which, maybe
that's for most people. And most people don't. I mean, most people don't. I mean, we get questions from listeners and viewers, but we also get them mailed into us and people who are see our members. And, sometimes it's just something that can be answered in the owner's manual. It's just not human nature just to run into the owner's manual. Right, and I think
to your guys' point, if people, this is a nameplate, right? That's been around for a long time. People are very familiar with it. They've likely owned a Highlander in the past or, a similar Toyota type vehicle. So they're going to get in. They're going to feel right at home. Sure. Compared to the last Highlander that we had just a couple years ago, it's very similar interior. You get in, you know what you're expecting. You can rely on what you're going to be delivered with in this vehicle. And it's good. You can just keep kind of going with what you've been doing. So
right.
To me, that can be a really great thing when you're swapping cars. You don't want to necessarily always have to relearn everything.
Well, the opposite is like Mercedes, where it
which
seems
is like an experience.
Every model, every model is a different experience, even though it was redesigned using the same platform as a different one that was redesigned. I mean, that's the opposite, and it's exciting in some ways.
Maybe
not
you don't
unintended
want that much adventure in your day to day.
And that's why, like you said, it's tried and true.
Yeah.
Mike, you mentioned the engine before I get to my stuff.
Sure. It's the 4-cylinder with a turbo, and I do appreciate the turbo. It bumps up the torque number, which is nice. It is a pretty big vehicle, especially if you load it up with some people. But under acceleration, it is pretty noisy. Yeah. And I think a lot of that is the fuel injectors, things like that. But it's pretty noticeable, even if you have the radio on, unless you have it cranked. Quite a bit of engine noise.
It sounds like the struggle bus. When it
does it, but it doesn't sound like it's having a good time doing it.
Right.
So that was kind of the one thing I noticed in my overnight, sort of my only kind of negative point on it. But I did appreciate the bump in torque from the Turbo 4 off of the 6. So.
It gets out of its way easily. I mean, it's merging is fine, around town is fine, but it's that hard acceleration, and it's not even a continuously variable transmission.
Right.
It's like, you think some Toyotas have that CVT, and that accentuates the noise. No, it's a regular conventional.
Regular 8-speed auto.
Yeah.
I will say, though, with the last version that we had, I drove the Highlander Hybrid a lot, and that was great. And that's kind of become my go-to, where I'm like, okay, if we have a gas version of a car and we have the hybrid version, I'm probably gonna go for the hybrid version because it's quieter, it has better power delivery. I'm like, okay, I can be more happy and enjoyable with this experience than the gas car. So I mean, I would probably still tell people to go for the Highlander hybrid this time around.
Well, you mentioned that. I mean, we're going to, when we are done testing this, we'll transfer some of the scores of the parts, stuff that changed, mostly the infotainment system, over to the Highlander hybrid because, again, unchanged powertrain.
Yeah.
So that we're not going to buy a version of that just because they've changed a couple of things. Like also, I mean, most hybrids we found now are the better version of a vehicle because the hybrid masks the engine deficiencies.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So my complaint, I get so frustrated with the Toyota seat folding. There's so many auto manufacturers that have a simple way to fold the second row seats. It's a button, you flip it down, or a lever and it goes down. You can recline it, you can flat it, you can do whatever. Toyota has a lever in the back to get out, a lever on the side to recline it, a lever in the front that's hidden to pull it forward and back, and then another lever to flat it. Yes, if you've had the Highlander for a while, you know this. If it's like many things, you get used to it and it's fine. But it is still just awkward and annoying.
There are certainly more elegant ways that we've seen
more
it
elegant
done.
ways of doing it.
I will say that having recently done it in the Sequoia, I was still happier with how the Highlander does it because the Sequoia is like a hot mess when it comes to folding that seat.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I tried it again yesterday, and I had kind of forgotten with the way that they fold down that second row in the Highlander. Your third row access it's a little narrow, and I was kind of shimming my way back there. And then once I sat back there, I was like, all right, I'm not tall, but my knees are pretty much like at my face level. So like,
it's a kid seat.
Yeah, you could put people back there, but preferably they are people that are like small.
You don't like.
I tried the third row, and I even I put the seats in the seated position, the second row, and it was tight. I couldn't sit up straight. I had to sit sideways with my legs.
Yeah.
And then
you can, they at least made it so that the second row can translate forward.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep,
so
and that was helpful.
A little bit more room, but not.
I would give you about 10 minutes. That would be like an emergency situation if we had to go somewhere. I'm not taking a trip to Boston or New York City in that third row.
I'm going to just cart you around
and
now.
There was no elegant way to get out of that third row. I kind of felt like Andy Dufresne, crawling out of prison, getting out of there, which...
cleaner, though. Cleaner.
Yes, it was cleaner, but it wasn't elegant, it wasn't graceful, and I'm glad I didn't have an audience.
And we're appreciative of that. Infotainment system. So... like you said, no hard control, few hard controls, if any, except for the volume knob on this big screen. Toyota's game with connecting the CarPlay, with wireless charging, the wireless connectivity, I don't know what their issue is. For over a year now, and Toyota has said to me that they know of it. For some reason, they cannot pause and mute the radio when you're dictating a text or listening to a text. They know there's some issue. They still haven't figured it out. If you're using CarPlay and you're trying to dictate a text, the radio still plays at its volume. Yeah. I know, Dave, you're making this weird face, but that's because you're only driving the Tesla all the time. But anyway, so that's frustrating as heck. It's annoying with the wireless charger.
Try to do that, so I'm glad that you did.
The phone slides around on the wireless charger pad. Like it needs something just to keep it from... just keep it there. I mean, it's hard plastic, and you have a case, and it just slides back and forth. That's silly. Annoying to hit the capacitive touch buttons to change things. So not always great. Yeah, sure. You set your presets, you use the steering wheel. Totally get it. I will say, and the notes, cargo area is huge with the seats folded. Yeah. I carried a ton of, it was stupid.
Even without the seats folded,
cushions.
You still have, it's good enough for like groceries and stuff.
Oh yeah. With you flip up the bottom panel and you can stack the bags along, which is great. And they're perfectly sized for grocery bags, really smart, livable things. Some
for sure.
Either vestigial, the controls of the seat, or just the infotainment. I don't know why there's such a hot mess, to use your term, because it is Tundra, Sequoia. Even in the Lexuses with the dropping, there's something wrong with their technology there, and it's not just. Many of us have said it. It's not just like, well, John, there's the common denominator. No, the common denominator is Toyota's system.
Sounds like a personal problem, John. I will say though, like typical to Toyota, they only introduce one or two new things at a time, right? So, if during your test drive you can figure out the little like kooks about the system and be comfortable enough with it, it might not be enough to like tip you over into not buying the new Highlander.
Sure.
And because they made so much else about the Highlander familiar, it's still the same, right? They always add only one or two new things. They don't like overhaul the entire design of the car. And so for the loyal Toyota fans, you're going to find a lot of what you like and love, and then probably a few things that are kind of annoying for you, maybe, but depending on how much you love everything else, you might be willing to get over it.
So quick question for both of you before I wrap it. Would you jump from a Highlander into a Telluride or a Palisade if you went and test drove this? You know, would this keep you in Toyota, or would you find those other ones more interesting? Let's go, Mike, and then...
I do like the Telluride and the Palisade. I like them both. And I might have to go with just appearance-wise on personal taste, which one I prefer the way it looks, which would be a Telluride. And I think that's where I might land myself.
Emily?
Yeah, so this is hard for sure. I would probably go with the Palisade, partially because Micah, my eldest, he loves the Palisade. He calls it the Palace. And he has a lot of fond memories of picnicking in the back. But I mean, I really, really did love the Palisade. It was spacious. I enjoyed driving it. It had a lot of even like the convenience kind of amenities that I like. Hyundai does a great job of putting all this like extra storage in there for moms and like families and just all these different nooks and crannies. They really utilize every inch and make it usable for you, not just like, oh, I'm gonna, let it do some gimmicky thing for the car. It's practical for the people using the vehicle. So I think I would go with the Palisade. Yeah,
I mean, Hyundai and Kia really kind of shook that segment. Yeah. And I think a lot of them are playing catch up. And I don't know if this one, if the changes are enough to bring it there, especially since they have a V6 and this is now a Turbo 4. Wrap it up. I mean, there's no reason to expect the Highlander to buck the trend of reliability in Consumer Reports tests and survey evaluations. You could check that out on consumerreports.org. For more information, go see the Highlander page on our website. So that's going to bring us to our question and answer part of the show. As always, you can send your questions to talkingcars@icloud.com. Text or video questions, please send them on. We have 2 questions on this episode. First is a video question about top-tier gas. So roll the tape.
Hey, Talking Cars. Can you please remind us on the importance of using top-tier fuel for our vehicles? Thank you.
All right, so top-tier gasoline. Mike, some of our viewers, some of us may not know exactly what it is.
That would be me. Definitely went into the production meeting thinking that he was asking if we should put premium gas in all our cars. And I was like, leaving the meeting being like, nope, that is not what the question was at all. Which
we do have on consumerreports.org, a comparison of regular and recommended and required premium gas. So take a look at that. But Mike, anyway, what's the deal with top tier gas?
Yeah, so I think 2004 is when we started to see top tier gas. And basically what it is, it's the name brand fueling stations that we kind of know that you see around home, when you travel, wherever you are, you see the same stations over and over again. And what it's referring to is the detergents that are in the fuel. They go above and beyond the federal requirements. So some little independent gas station, they're a couple cents cheaper maybe. They might not have some of those detergents in the fuel. They might, but they might not. And on these newer vehicles, especially direct injected vehicles, we need those detergents to help keep the engines clean. They're susceptible to carbon buildup, and that can cause misfires and starting problems and things like that. So this detergent, just like for your dishwasher at home, some detergents do better than others. You can find that on Consumer Reports. And these top tier fuels just help that. You're still going to get carbon buildup. It's just not to the extreme and not as fast.
Okay. So it's a branding thing. You can find them at Shell or Exxon or Costco as well. So it's
absolutely
not
right.
Like
so it's not always
the gas station at the corner,
and it's not always the more expensive gas stations. Because even looking at our more recent article about it, when people are trying to save money with gas because gas is expensive, places like Costco are still giving you top tier gas at a discounted price.
Absolutely.
So there are more reasonably priced options available for people. So I think that's important to know, because I think also the other part of it is you might feel like, okay, I'm going to save some money on gas right now by going to a station that maybe isn't a top tier gas station. And you can find a whole list on cr.org of what is a top tier gas station. FYI, I had to look it up. So I'm right with you. But you can think that you're going to save money now, but apparently you're not really, because in the long run, it's just going to do terrible things to your engine, and you're going to have like more costs, repair costs. And
you could incur repair costs. There are processes and procedures out there to help get rid of this carbon.
But they're expensive and they're not covered by warranty.
Absolutely. It's not a warrantable item, and your car's down for a few days. Plus you deal with misfires and everything like that. So,
And
better to plan ahead.
And some of the other the reason sometimes you also have the higher price on top of that is that some of the brands have their own special sauce on top of the top tier. So top tier is kind of a minimum to get to that top tier brand.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then Mobile or whomever may have their own special extra gel packet they're throwing in.
They might, yes.
Yeah. And in order to get that top tier rating, every octane level, right, that they're offering has to meet the criteria for it.
Correct,
so it's not like if you were to go to one of those gas stations, you're only getting that quality on
premium.
On the premium.
Exactly.
See, just like I thought. You're not only getting it on the premium one, you're even getting it for regular gas, which I think is great.
Cool. So like we all said, whether it's dishwasher detergent or car detergents, check it out, consumerreports.org. We've got articles on both. Our second question is another video question. It's about launch control, and it has nothing to do with SpaceX.
It's not a video question, though.
It's not? Oh, well, I don't have the question then. So our second question is a writing question from Michel, and he asks, what is the purpose of the launch control on a vehicle? I read somewhere this should only be used in controlled environment, like a racetrack. If that's the case, what is the purpose of having it on a regular car? It's on my Genesis GV70, but I'm not sure where I could go to test its functionality. Well, Michelle, we happen to have a track and a GV70, and we tried it out as well. So, Mike.
Yeah, we certainly did.
I think both you and Emily drove it with that.
We did.
We did. Yep.
Tell us about it.
So yeah, first and foremost, in the Genesis owner manual, it says it is to be used in controlled environments on the track only, certainly not out on the street. And basically what it is it's a system that allows you to, as safely and as controlled as possible, experience maximum acceleration with little to no wheel spin in that vehicle. So there's a process to activate it, and basically 1 foot on the brake, 1 on the gas, release the brake, and off you go.
Okay.
Right. But part of that process, though, is turning off the vehicle's traction control, its electronic stability control. Why I would certainly recommend, though, you don't do this at home, folks, on public roads. And you only do it in controlled environments. So, there's certainly safety implications to using that system on the public roads. It's not really ideal for like going from a stop sign or a red light. It's not. Right. You have to do all these different steps. You have to hold it down for X amount of seconds, etc. But to that point, it's also, from what I read in the manual, it's not great for your car either.
It's not necessarily bad for it. You don't want to do it over and over and over again. You build up a lot of heat, and that can cause extra stress on components. But once in a while, if you were to track, you could do it, and everything would be okay. Yeah,
and you're not abusing the drivetrain in the sense of if you were left foot braking a car without launch control,
correct,
and straining it.
Right.
I mean, you see videos online and you see the person doing it. Okay, maybe they need launch control instead of the guy who drives his Ferrari across the bridge and wipes it out. Any Mustang driver at a Cars and Coffee, please. But again, unless you're at a racetrack where you're gridding up, like an F1 car, okay, they will use it.
Correct.
Because you hear the rev limiter, and then they're going. For the most part, it's bragging rights at car magazines. They can get the best 0 to 60.
Why need it? Like, to his point, why put it on something like the GV70?
And that's a very valid question. And I think they build this as a luxury performance SUV, so I think you get a little bit of that sport or performance credibility by having launch control, and maybe someone else included it in there, so Genesis doesn't want to be left out. And the real reason is all the stuff to make launch control work is already in the vehicle. It's using all the wheel speed sensors and actuators and things like that. So it's a little bit of software, a procedure display comes up and off you go. It doesn't really cost them anything else to do it. So I think, they get more value out of saying it has it for for performance aspect of things and marketing and things like that. Yeah. And that way, someone doesn't buy something else if they want launch control.
So that's going to do it for this episode. As always, send us your questions, talkingcars@icloud.com. Leave your questions in the comments below. Like every episode, produced by Dave Abrams and Andrew Belize. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.